We just spent 2 weeks traveling around Indonesia, and in this video, we're going to tell you all the things we wish we knew before we traveled there.
Unbelievable. Yes, worth the hype.
We're going to break down the costs of transport, accommodation, and activities, and give you loads of tips and advice for the different places that we visited.
Doing this when it's busy will be a nightmare because it's pretty single file.
Now, both Luke and I had been to Indonesia before, but we only visited Bali and Gili T, and so this trip focused on going to mostly new places for us.
Lombok.
Yeah.
You're sick.
So our route began with 1 day in Jakarta, and then we flew to Malang and had a few days traveling around East Java.
This is our lodge right here. And this is the view. That's unbelievable.
We then just had 1 night in Bali before making our way towards Gili T to have a couple of nostalgic nights there.
This is really cool actually being back.
From here, we spent 4 days traveling around Lombok on bikes, and then we flew to Labaun Bajo to do a 2-day, 1-night boat trip around Komodo National Park.
Like, that was genuinely one of the best things I've ever seen.
Normally when I do like a travel tips video, I kind of break it down by like money and accommodation and transport and other things like that. But for this one, we're going to break it down by location because there's like different advice for different parts of Indonesia. We started in Jakarta, and we're not going to have much advice for Jakarta at all because we had 1 full day there, and we were there on a Monday, and on Mondays, everything in Jakarta is shut. So the first tip is don't go to Jakarta on a Monday.
I think we might have picked the worst day of the week to come to Jakarta.
It was the most random day in Jakarta.
Yeah,
honestly.
We stayed at Wonderloft Hostel in the old town of Jakarta.
The guys in the hostel were amazing. And the hostel itself was kind of perfect little setting for us to catch up as well, because it had the little bar downstairs, the pool table.
Jakarta's obviously a huge city, and we were trying to use the buses to get around, and at the hostel they lent us like one of those travel cards, a bit like an Oyster card, and we just topped it up ourselves, so that was pretty easy. But other than that, yeah, just don't go on a Monday. Moving over to East Java, we were going to get the train to Malang, overnight train, but it sold out months in advance because of the holidays that were on, which is why we flew to Malang. Now, lots of other people, when they go into East Java, fly to Surabaya, use the airport there, but it's like Malang and Surabaya like the same distance to Bromo, same time, and because we had our sort of minds fixed on Malang, that's why we went through there. And I think Malang's actually a town worth checking out. An earlier version of the itinerary, we were going to have a bit of time there to see it, but then we only had 2 weeks and there was so much to see, so I was just like, sorry, that one had to go.
Yeah.
From getting from Malang airport to our accommodation in Bromo, the guy who worked at the accommodation just WhatsApped me saying, do you need a transport? And we just booked it straight through him. And that cost us 850,000 rupee, which works out 35 quid or 47 US dollars, which when you divide it by the 2 of us was pretty cheap. And a lot of the places in East Java, if you're traveling it solo, the costs will mount up with the transport. But because we had the 2 of us, like, it made it all still very cheap. And not extortionate money. 35 quid for a 3-hour drive, you know, as a bargain compared to
that's an Uber to central London.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
we did meet a few people in Java, didn't we, who were traveling on their own, and they were asking us, you know, do you know anyone going here, because it's actually biting my budget a lot.
Yeah.
Me paying for taxis on my own, and obviously in East Java, it's pretty much the only way to get around.
But what a lot of people do East Java is they'll just do it on like a mini group tour. They'll book like a 3 or 4 day thing. They might be like solo backpacking around Bali or whatever, or doing like a Southeast Asia solo backpacking trip, or even with friends or whatever. But then just to get East Java sorted, they'll just book a tour just to make it simple. I'll put a link up to one of those tours here in case anyone wants to book that. It's so easy to do by yourself. You definitely do not need a tour, but if you just want someone to take care of all the transport, probably bring down some of the costs in terms of transport. And also if you want just people to share the experience with, it can be worth looking at, because there wasn't much of a scene in East Java. Like, there was a couple of hostels here and there, but it wasn't like lots of people hanging out and stuff. So it's worth looking at if you want to have like guaranteed people to share the experience with. But in terms of money and ease, it's so easy to do by yourself.
Yeah, obviously it's a lot quieter, but it still is the same as going pretty much anywhere in Southeast Asia, where you get to the hostel and they will ask you, you know, have you got onwards travel? Have you booked somewhere next? And they'll know somebody who can take you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it doesn't feel like you're quite in the midst of the backpacking scene, but the actual side of people helping you out and organising things is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Speaking of having people to share the experience with, obviously Luke and I were having such a great time together on this trip, but there were certain moments where we were really missing our better halves.
Jamie, Holly, we wish you were here.
Fortunately, it was super easy to keep in touch with them because we'd signed up to a Holofly plan, which, wouldn't you know, just so happens to be the sponsor of this week's video. So on this trip I did in March, I spent 2 weeks in Japan with Jamie, 2 weeks in Indonesia with Luke, and then I had a stop off in Singapore on the way home, and even had a few hours in Beijing airport on my flight back. And rather than signing up for a different eSIM for each country I went to, I signed up to a Holofly plan, which gave me one eSIM that worked across 160 plus destinations. This made my life so much easier, especially when traveling from one country to another with different people that I had to be in touch with. It just gave me peace of mind knowing that I was connected all of the time. The Holofly plan is a monthly subscription that renews every 30 days and can be cancelled at any time. They have the Lite plan, which gives you 25 gigabytes of data a month, or the Unlimited plan, which gives you unlimited data and unlimited hotspot. And my normal phone number stays the same for calls and for WhatsApp whilst I'm using Holofly for data. Installing it was super easy. I just downloaded the Holofly app, picked the plan I want, and then followed the installation instructions. Another great feature they have is Always On, which is 1 gigabyte of backup data that comes with every Holofly eSIM. What that means is even if your plan comes to an end, as long as you keep the eSIM installed on your phone, you will continue to get 1 gigabyte for free every month as emergency data, which is pretty sweet. So if you click the link in the description and use the promo code KarlWatsTheDogs, that'll get you 10% off Holofly plans and 5% off all of the Holofly eSIMs. And now, let's head back to Mount Bromo for some more Indonesia travel tips.
Where we stayed at in Bromo, there's like a little village right by the crater of the volcano, and we stayed at Cahyo Homestay. And this place, like, you know, it's a basic room, just beds and a like trickle for a shower, but it's all you need because you're not really spending much time in the room anyway. You're kind of arriving, enjoying being outside in the evening, and then you're up at the crack of dawn to go see the sunrise. But it was, as we showed in the film, it was right by the edge. You just walked literally 30 seconds from your room and you've got the viewpoint right there.
Yeah, we didn't touch the room. As soon as we put our stuff in the room, we were straight out and we stayed there until we went to bed.
Yeah,
it's exactly what you need.
Yeah, and like the little village had everything from like they were selling like warm clothes and drinks. They had an ATM, so if you'd forgotten anything, if you mostly packed clothes for warm weather for Indonesia, and then you suddenly higher up because it's about 2,000 meters up, I think. Then
it's over 2,000.
Then you can quickly grab some extra layers, but it wasn't that cold. Like I'd read stuff online about it being like people being freezing cold, and so I'd packed all these like thick layers and I didn't need any of them. Like it was,
you know, I was quite nervous before that because I had not prepared for any cold and I'm not very good with it, but no issue, absolutely fine. That up there behind the trees is where we're hiking.
That's King Kong Hill up there. So it doesn't look that hard, to be honest. No.
I would say about that hike, if you're doing it, I wouldn't do it by yourself. There's a potential you could lose the path in the pitch black, potentially fall off something and potentially roll your ankle, and you're not going to get any help for a good couple hours until the sun comes up and people can see you. You know, it's only a 45-minute hike, but I would only do it if you're traveling with someone else. Yeah,
because we did actually get lost.
Yeah.
About halfway through, didn't we?
Yeah. We got
really didn't look like a path.
So it's like starts out very clear, you're following a road, and then you're following some steps in a path, and then you get to a place, and then suddenly you're just following this tiny little, like, it's about literally this wide kind of thing through.
On the left it was trees, and then on the right it's just that massive pipe. Don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
So it was very confusing, but hey, you saw we got there.
Yeah, and
it turned out alright.
Behold, we made it. Let's go.
The bikes can take you straight to the top. You don't need to do the hike. We just chose to do it. And in terms of booking the bikes and the jeeps, it was just when you get to the Bromo Park entrance in your transfer, like the day before, and you're paying the entrance, there's already guys coming up to the windows saying, do you need a Jeep, do you need a bike? So it's like, if you get to Bromo and can't book a Jeep or a bike, you've done something very, very wrong, because it's like...
I think you're in the wrong place.
You're not
in Bromo. As we said in the video as well, like, bikes it is so much better than Jeeps in every way. It made our day so much quicker.
Yeah.
And that traffic coming down was pretty horrific, actually.
And then, like, the rest of it, like, the little stroll up to the volcano was fine. It was a lot more impressive than we thought. But then walking back across the Sea of Sands, I really enjoyed, actually. Like,
yeah, that was great. I really liked that.
It was only, like, half-hour walk or something, so it's not, like, anything strenuous, but just felt like you kind of got to, experience the land a little more, rather than just, sit on the back of the bike all the way. So
the worst part was actually that road at the end.
Yeah.
Like, the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, because you got to get that final bit out's quite steep, and there's lots of horses going past, so it stinks, and it's like Jeeps zooming past you, so that wasn't pleasant. After Bromo, we went round to Tumpak Sewu. It's weird because I was trying to look up, like, Tumpak Sewu was the name of the waterfall, but I was trying to look up, like, the name of, like, the little village we're in. I just couldn't find it. Like,
it was around. On the sides, but I can't remember it.
But even looking on Google Maps or look at the address of the place we were staying, it kind of said what kind of county it's in or whatever, but it was no like this village is called an obvious thing like that. But again, the transport, we booked it from our Bromo accommodation. It was just the same guide. It was the same price. So again, anywhere you go, if you need transport, you just speak to reception and they're just like, get it sorted for you. And then the place we stayed at was Indah Damai Cottages, which was £24 or $33, and again, that's between the two of us, so you split that in two. And that was lovely. That was a really, really, really nice place. I reckon if that was in Bali, they'd be charging about 4 times the amount, because it was very
100%.
kind of Instagram friendly, very picturesque. That afternoon, we went to see Kabat Pelangi Falls, which was just like a 20-minute walk from our place. There are lots of other waterfalls in the area as well. Like, if we were doing a more leisurely pace on this trip, it would have been great to stay there another night and then just go and see, because Tumpak Sewu is the famous one everyone goes to see, but it would have been fun to go for like a random explore and just see what else was in the area. But Tumpak Sewu itself, it cost 100,000 rupees to get in, which is like £4 or $6. And but the waterfalls itself, spectacular, but getting down to it is like these super steep steps.
Yeah, it's one of those you got to kind of look down or up most of the way.
Yeah,
just to make sure you've got your footing right. Yeah. And obviously, because it is next to a waterfall / river, it is very slippy, like most of the way.
So moving on to Ijen, it was a 7-hour transfer from Tumpak Sewu. Again, just booked through our accommodation. That cost us 1,300 rupees, which is like 53 quid, $73. But again, divide that by 2 because there's 2 of us. Everything there is super easy. We were staying at it's Zzz Ijen Hostel. It's like the sleeping hostel, which is ironic because I don't know if anyone actually sleeps there. It's more like luggage storage with a bed.
Yeah. Okay, lovely hostel. No disrespect to the hostel, was great.
Yeah, and the people working there were really nice and stuff. And yes, you can just book the whole volcano experience through them. So it was like all super easy and super simple.
Why the fuck are we doing this?
Honestly, I can't stress enough how miserable this man was before that hike. It was hilarious, but also not, because I was also part of this.
We didn't do ourselves any favors because we were tired, and then we had Pizza Hut and beer, which is not exactly energy inducing kind of.
No.
What we were saying in the video is like the blue flame. It's funny when I've shown the video to people, they see the blue flame, they go like, "Oh, that's really cool." I'm like, it's fine, but it's like if you've been on like when you were younger, when you're like a sort of lads holiday somewhere in Europe and they kind of pour like sambuca over the bar and light it on flame, it just looks like that, like
the top of an absinthe.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a cool experience and I'm glad we did it, and the view for the sunrise is great. But if you can find a company that just takes you up there to do for the sunrise so you can actually get a bit of sleep, I would try and seek that out, but I don't know if those companies exist. I think everyone just sells
Yeah,
the
I'm
full
not
package.
sure. Going down when it was really dark, all of it was rock. There was no steps or anything like that. You're just constantly looking down. It's just, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
And some people even miss the sunrise because they stayed down there too long or couldn't see the flame.
Because only like at sunrise where you suddenly go like, oh, that's what we were walking through, because you had no idea.
On the way up here, maybe in 5 minutes after we started, how many bin tangs did you say that we had in the fridge?
4 or 5?
Wrong. We had 3 or 4.
Nice. I love you, Luke.
The reason why I snuck that bin tang into my bag before the hike as well is because I knew that would lift you.
It did. No, you know me so well.
Oh, mate, you're welcome, mate.
I'm so glad you did. That was.
Oh, it's good though.
It's always good, mate.
No, but like really good.
After all that pain, and not even physical pain, just pain of like being tired and just like why, you know. So no, I felt good. And then moving on to Bali, because we're on such a tight schedule, I was like, I don't want us to get to the pier and the ferry be sold out and we have to wait around. So I pre-booked our ferry tickets on a website called 12 Go Asia, which I've used a lot before. They're great for using like booking buses and things like that around Southeast Asia. But we got there and we're going to get on the ferry, and I showed the guy the booking, and he went, oh, that's your booking confirmation, it's not your actual tickets. In order to get the tickets, you have to text this number and then they'll authorize the tickets. So I WhatsApped this number and they just never replied. And so we ended up just buying new tickets. Now, the tickets cost like $1, so it's like not like, it wasn't a problem, but I'd only just booked them just like to guarantee our spot. But it turned out, because it was a day after the holidays, like everyone was traveling across, so rather than just being one ferry an hour, there was just a constant, they were just like, just the next one you just get on, and there's this whole fleet going across there.
It's a bit of an armada, wasn't it? That day?
Yeah. And it's supposed to be a half-hour journey, but it took us an hour and a half just because we were waiting in a queue to actually get to the dock and stuff like that. But it all worked out, and then jumped in a taxi to that hotel, and we were staying at the Taman Sari Bali Resort and Spa in Pemutaran Beach, and that cost us, between us, it was £82 or $111, which was a reduced rate because it was just before the main season started, so we did get a deal that way. But like, that place was spectacular. I mean, even if you paid the full rate, it's still a bargain to other places in the world for a hotel that nice in that kind of setting. So
that was an evening that gave us everything we needed, in a sense of just chilling out.
Yeah, we needed
even when the weather took us we just still sat in that hut and had a few drinks.
It was great because we were so exhausted from, you know, the first few days of the trip, and especially the last night of climbing the volcano. But it was just a nice time to sort of wind down, relax. And then I remember we got back to our rooms. We had like separate rooms, and then,
I know what's coming.
Yeah,
I know
and
what's
then
coming.
And then I think I might have, I can't remember if I'd fallen asleep or not, but I went out to the balcony and I just saw Luke. He obviously just laid down on the couch on his balcony. He was just passed out, like dead to the world, like
Catching flies.
Yeah.
Catching flies. Mouth wide open, bin tag next to me.
Yeah, the sleep had finally caught up with us, and just those beds were comfy, so that was.
Well, I actually didn't enjoy the bed to my maximum potential because I just slept on the balcony half the night.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
We should have just paid for one room, and you could have just slept on the balcony. And then we were moving on to Gili T. So the transfer was 900,000 rupees, so £37, $50. And again, that was like 4 or 5 hour drive. The ferry was 300,000 rupees, so again, 12 quid, $17, so not much. And yeah, go sit upstairs when you're on it. Like get the amount of.
I can't stress it enough. That was all you, to be fair, because you're the one that realised that there was a deck up there.
I saw the seats upstairs and saw no one was there, and because we got on and all the seats inside were full, and so we went up there and had our own. We started out a private party, and then gradually people came up, and then they were serving beers up there. They had I put some.
They had a big old speaker.
It was great.
Yeah, that did really turn into the Gili pregame, didn't it?
Yeah.
Whole trip.
Gili T. We were staying at the Tipsy Turtle Hostel. For the twin room was 25 quid a night or $34. Great hostel, like
Really good hostel.
Location's not too far off the main street. One thing I would say for Gili T as a general bit of advice is some of the hostels are a bit further away, and like you can easily hire out bicycles or scooters, because the islands, you think the island's tiny, but it's deceptively a bit bigger than you think. And if your hostel's a bit further away, but you want to be able to quickly nip to the beach or to the shops, then it might be worth getting a bike for your days of that. And I'm sure they're dirt cheap. I didn't see the prices, but
Nice one, Josh shot.
Yeah, we went a bit hard.
yeah, and that was. Well, it was the only night we actually really got drunk. Like, we had plenty of beers on this trip, but the only time we really got drunk was that big kind of Gili T.
That was the only time that we woke up quite dusty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no other tips or advice for Gili T. You just go there and you have a good time. Then you'll figure it all out. It's not like
Yeah, and if you don't have a good time in Gili T, then
yeah. Then go to one of the other Gilis. Go to Gili.
yeah.
The boat across to Lombok was 150,000 rupees, which is like 6 quid or $8. We booked it the day before, but you can probably just buy it on the day and just walk onto these things. Even though it was busy, there's so many of them going. And then we got to Ryan's motorbike rental. I literally just zoomed into Google Maps, just looking at bike rental, and this one came up. And then I saw the reviews of it, and they're all fantastic. And they were correct. Like, the guy was, Ryan was so good. The bikes were great. I could store my big bag there for the few days and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was your main worry, wasn't it? Because you didn't know for a fact before we got there whether you could store your big bag or not.
Yeah.
But as soon as we got there, he was like, yeah, leave it here. It's all good.
Yeah, because he was about to tie it onto the back of my bike and sort of be riding around with that, which would have made it gone even slower.
Imagine you going up that mountain pass.
I don't know if I would have made it up the mountain pass with that bag on.
Not a chance.
Yeah. And I would say for Lombok in general, a scooter is 100% the best way to get around, because again, you can book transports, but I think they might have been more pricey than they were in Java. Because I remember when we were at the Tetebatu Bungalow, and the German girl who was on the did the tour with us, she was traveling by herself and she was booking transports, and she was trying to see if anyone else was going the same direction as her to sort of save money on these long drives. Whilst for us, riding the scooters it was so cheap. I mean, the bikes were 100,000 rupees per day, so that's £4 or $6 per day for the bike. And then petrol was 15,000 rupees for one bottle, which is less than $1. And you might take two bottles to fill up, but it's so cheap. Like, ignoring how fun it is and all the rest of it, it's just so cheap.
I don't think we ever stopped twice for fuel on a journey.
Yeah,
I don't think. Every single time, one refill's enough.
Yeah, it was just usually one refill per day. Yeah, and it was so much fun driving, and didn't feel, even the places where it was busier, didn't feel like unsafe. Like, it wasn't like, I remember some of the stretches I did in Vietnam on a scooter, and like there's like giant lorries coming past and all that, and you like, feels a bit sketchy, but Lombok just felt fine.
Yeah,
so
we had a couple of like busier traffic areas, but again, nothing that.
Yeah. But when it's
question.
busy, you're going so slow, you're almost just like pushing the bike through the crowds. So it sort of, takes a bit to navigate, but it didn't feel dangerous or anything.
No, I think out of our whole like 4 days in Lombok, that was maybe 10 minutes of it.
Yeah. And the rest of the time was pretty empty and stuff. So if you've got a driving license, if you're going from Gili T to Lombok and you're not used to riding a scooter, I'd maybe hire out a scooter in Gili T just to get used to it. So you're just going up and down the beach and just get used to handling it, and then by the time you get to Lombok, you'll be good to go. So
yeah, to be fair, you probably get better practice in Gili.
Yeah,
because you've got horses coming both ways as well.
Yeah, and drunk backpackers. So
which is more dangerous.
If you can do it and you feel comfortable doing it, it's the best way to get around. Otherwise, you're going to be paying for transfers, which again, if there's a group of you, it's fine, but if you're solo. Hey Rosie, you got any input for this bit for riding scooters? What's up? Anyway, so first night we got down to Kuta Beach. We were staying at the Lost Inn Kuta Capsule Hostel. The dorm room was 11 quid or $15. The private room was 19 quid or $26. It wasn't right on the beach. It was like a few minute drive from it. So again, if you got a scooter, it's fine. It seemed like a really nice place. Again, because we were on such a tight schedule, like a lot of these places in the evenings, we weren't there to hang around and like we didn't get to see what the vibe was like at this place, because we checked in, hung out for a little bit, then just went to the beach and went for the sunset and food, and then came back and slept. So yeah,
it was the type of hostel that if you were there with a big group of mates, you wouldn't leave.
Yeah. The beach we went to was Tanjung An Beach, and the hill right beside it's called Marisa Hill. And the beach was nice, and had lots of stuff going on there. I did have... It's so funny, I had someone comment on the video, like going like, oh my god, you're drinking beers all the time. I could tell this person was not from Indonesia, because they were like... And the fact you were carrying around beers in Lombok, where it's like majority Muslims, so disrespectful. You could see how uncomfortable everyone was around you. Like, maybe in Bali you can do that, but not in Lombok. And I'm like, I didn't bother replying. But it's like, if you were there at that beach, you would have seen that every single hut and every single food store we walked past on the way to sunset, every single one of them was selling beer.
Well, if you want more beers, we know where they are.
The fact we stood there at sunset and drank 2 light beers, no one gave a shit. Everyone was just saying, we were chatting to people whilst, like, there's a guy next to me had the same drone as me. We were just chatting away about shots and stuff like that. So there's this whole perception that people, you know, oh, it's Muslim, therefore they hate alcohol. Like, we were in Pakistan, where alcohol's illegal for Muslims, and off camera, all the Muslims were asking us if they could have one of our beers, you know, so...
They were shotting whiskey with us, mate.
Yeah. They were like, this is what I've brewed in my basement, you know. So, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that one up because it's so funny. People get... It's like this recreational outrage where they get offended on behalf of someone else, and it's like, well, actually, if you were there... No one gave a shit. Other people were drinking beers. Everywhere was selling them. And
we were good that night. We only bought 1 beer each to that.
Yeah. We weren't, again, it's sort of, I think people see you with a beer in the hand and immediately think you're getting drunk. And it's like, no, we're just having a beer at sunset. We're not, you know, if we're there with a bottle of tequila and doing shots and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, maybe calm it down. But
that was just off camera.
Yeah, that was off camera. Oh, that'll get them going. See? So then we moved on to Tetebatu, where there's like a whole bunch of waterfalls and monkey forests and stuff.
Oh, look at this. I just want to hang out here all afternoon.
This will do.
Okay, enjoy your stay. Huh?
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We hadn't planned to do like any kind of walking tour there. The guy running the hostel offered it, and I'd heard good reviews about the one at our hostel, and it ended up being like absolute highlight of the trip.
100% agree. Yeah, Juicy was the guy who worked at the hostel, was amazing.
It didn't feel like a tour, it felt like we had a local friend just showing us around. And the stuff we got to experience today, we would never have experienced if we did it by ourselves.
That just exceeded every single expectation that we had.
Yeah, and it's weird, the place is technically not a hostel because it only does private rooms. It felt like a hostel. There was other backpackers there and stuff.
Yeah, and then again, all the locals turned up that night to play pool, and that was a bit of an underrated highlight, which is hard to get on camera, obviously.
Yeah.
But we were there for hours.
Yeah, you're just chatting away with the locals and hanging out and having a good time, and they were putting music on and stuff like that, so it felt like a local experience, even though we're technically at a hostel-ish kind of place. But that was great. And then we moved on to Senaru, and this is where we treated ourselves to a nicer hotel. And it was funny because I was just looking up, like, I think it might have been when we were in Gili T and just having some chill time.
I think it was on the way to Gili, like in the car. If I remember rightly.
That was it, yeah. So one of the long car journeys, I was just kind of looking up, like, because at this point we knew we were going to have 4 days in Lombok, but we didn't really know what we were going to see. I was like, I should probably start figuring out some ideas. And then I was just Googling some of the main places to go. And then I saw a little guide to Senaru, like someone written a blog, like, oh, this is the waterfall, this is what you want to see. And they said, a nice place to stay if you want to treat yourself is Rinjani Lodge. And I saw pictures of it, and I was like, oh god, that looks amazing, that would be so cool. I was like, well, I'm just going to click on it on booking.com just to see, and it's probably going to be like a few £100s, and it's like, no, we'll just find a hostel. But when it was £79.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, I was like, oh, we're getting this. Like, this will just be our treat in the trip. And again, not breaking the bank at all. Everywhere we went on this trip, the food was tasty. The only bad meal I think we had was the breakfast at the fancy hotel.
Yeah, and it was such a shame because the dinner was so nice.
The dinner was phenomenal, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had like tasteless hard bread.
Yeah.
With, do you remember that? I think they served like 2 baked beans in that little bowl.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
And that's not exaggeration. It was 2 baked beans.
And then like
in a little
some
pot.
cold scrambled eggs and stuff like that. We're hiking down to the waterfalls. It's funny, I've had someone comment in the video saying they made the exact same mistake at the waterfalls, like when we went the wrong way up the river. So
it was still not as stupid as we thought, because he did say follow the river.
I realised afterwards the reason we made a mistake is because when you're walking down the steps and you're nearly at the first waterfall, the path to the second one kind of goes off that way, but there's no signpost saying other waterfall that way. So when you're walking down, you don't notice that you almost go back on yourself as the other path.
Yeah.
When you go back up, you can clearly see it fork off. But walking the other way, you don't see it at all.
Couldn't really be any more obvious, could it?
Yep. Oh well. We'd been chatting to people at our hotel the day before, and they were talking about how much they had to wade through the river to get to the other waterfall. And the guy said follow the river, so we're like putting all that together. It was like, well, I guess we just follow the river, and we were completely wrong.
We were, but as we said, it was very fun.
It was so much fun.
It was an adventure.
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention in the video is once you get to the other waterfall, you can pay for tubing to come back. Like, I think you have to arrange it beforehand because I didn't see anyone like there offering to sell it. We saw some tubes by the side.
Yeah.
But I looked it up afterwards because we're walking on that path and there's that water going through the bridge underneath us. You actually tube down in that tunnel. That's what you do. Like, so you kind of go on it with a helmet and a torch with a guide, and you kind of going through all of that, which could have been a very claustrophobic but kind of fun experience. But so it might be worth checking out if you want something different to do. But we were happy just
still dodgy. I know it's a thing, but after seeing that,
it's
how many deaths are they covering up?
Yeah. And then we just had to hit the road. Like I talked about in the video, how we had to drive back, then get the taxi to the airport, and then fly to Komodo. The airport transfer we booked through Ryan, that was $350,000. And then the flights, both this flight and the other flight early in the trip, were about £80 or $110. So they're not expensive flights for these journeys. We were staying at the Seaesta Komodo Hotel and Hostel. So like I
love that place.
This place was so good. I mean, it had a mixture of like private rooms, like hotel rooms and dorm rooms. The private rooms had sold out when we were booking it, so we just got the dorm. And it was really nice rooms, like really nice beds in the dorms and stuff like that. Privacy curtains and things like that. So it was like a top quality dorm room. And that rooftop bar was just fantastic. Like,
mate, it was so weird because, like, I'm pretty sure you said it in the video. It was such a big mix of like families, locals, backpackers.
Like you sort of pop into the shared bathroom facilities by the dorms, and you sort of see some of the Westerner backpacker women just
like full caked up.
Yeah, getting ready for like a big night out, and we're just there in our bin tents. We're having a quiet one tonight. So
we were very uncool.
Yeah.
In that night. Yeah.
Well, we were, because it was a gorgeous sunset, an amazing view, but we deliberately had a quiet one because we wanted to be fresh for the boat trip and stuff. But
I did feel quite ill that night as well.
You were feeling, I was feeling a bit burnt out, and you were feeling a bit rough, and so we took it a bit easier. But also, because when I was looking at the footage, and I sort of like trying to show the bar area, and I could see all the backpackers just there on their phones. And I was like, if we were there a different night, it might have been like, all right, let's try and get everyone off their phones and get something going here. But we're like, no, we'll keep our heads down because we need a quiet one ourselves, kind of thing.
Yeah, so. And that was a great move as well. Because the next morning, we both felt pretty good.
Yeah, we felt very fresh the next morning to start the boat trip. When I was doing research for the Komodo boat trip, everything I saw was either 3 days, 2 nights, or just a 1 day trip where you're on like a speedboat just to take you the main stuff. And I was like, surely there's got to be someone that does a 2-day, 1-night trip, because that would fit our schedule perfectly. And it took me forever, but I eventually found it, and I do have a link for it, which I'll put up. That boat trip costs £130 or $176 for the 2 days, which does include your food and all like the entrance fees and all that stuff. The boat was great. The thing was the bedding situation. Like, I'd sort of ticked the box saying, yeah, twin room, and then we got in, and it was a giant double bed with another pull-out bed for us two and Tom. So it was like 3 of us.
Yeah, we didn't actually expect Tom, did we?
Yeah.
Which was a blessing because he was amazing.
Yeah,
and I think
really good guy.
Tom was very happy to have us on that boat.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing to note about these boat trips. Even though there's a lot of backpackers in the area, there's no like kind of backpacking boat. By that, I don't necessarily mean budget. I just mean like we had people from loads of different countries on our boat, but like a lot of them were like even older than me, you know. And then when you sort of start chatting to people at some of the stops from other boats, like someone solo backpacking, and then everyone else on the boats from like Korea or China or whatever, and sometimes you'd be the only one speaking English. So my advice for the Komodo trip, if you're booking it solo, is you might get a great crowd, or you might get a crowd that's not what you expect, but you might still meet some interesting people. But also, it might just be a bit of quiet time. Like, bring a good book or something for sort of the time in between the great stops, because it might not be, you know. I think for Tom, if we weren't on that boat, he would have just been like, you know, reading some books by himself, or just having a little chat with a couple of people. But it would have been a bit tame. But because there's 3 of us, we had a really good time together.
We had a great time. Tom was a very, very good addition for those 2 days.
Yeah,
he was a good lad. One thing I will add, and I don't want to make it all about beer again, obviously.
Yeah.
But on the boat, they didn't actually sell anything.
Yeah. They didn't have any beer or soft drinks either. They only had water to drink. As soon as we got on the boat, we realised this, and we were not leaving for another half an hour. So we asked them, and they sent a guy off in a little speedboat in town to get us a crate of beer. Also, on all the islands we stopped at, they sold beer and soft drinks, so you could stock up on those. So it is possible to get it along the way on the journey. Like, they don't have any rules, like you can bring stuff with you, so like just either stock up beforehand or stock up at the stops along the way. And the other thing I would say is, you know, it was hard to find a 2-day 1-night thing, certainly online, but I'm sure it'd be easy to find there because there's so many boats going all the time. If you're on a tight schedule, it's good to book ahead, but I think if you're not, you could probably just show up and find a boat to get on.
I think it'd almost be worth, if you were a solo backpacker, meeting people at the hostel, finding out what tour they're on.
Yeah.
And if they've got extra spots, then you can jump on one of theirs with friends you make, maybe.
By doing the 2-day 1-night thing, I think it was the perfect amount of time. I think if you're doing the 1-day thing, it'll be too rushed, and also you're not going to get that sunset with the flying foxes, which was one of the best things we've ever seen. But 3 days, 2 nights, which is what a lot of them do, that would have felt too long. Like, if we had to sleep another night on that boat, I would have been like,
I couldn't have done another night on that deck.
Yeah.
No way.
That was where I slept last night.
I think 2 days was the perfect amount of time. It was nice to have the amazing sunset and great couple of days. We saw everything we wanted to see, and then it was nice.
It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel rushed. No,
not at all. So
we had so much time to actually just chill and have some downtime on that boat.
Yeah.
So it was really, really nice.
And then the Komodo dragon thing itself, it does seem crazy when you get there and crazy busy, but the tour itself actually ended up being pretty good. And we got very, very lucky, because some people go there and don't see the dragons because they're up in the hills. And then most people go there will see them, but they'll just be lying down and not moving. The fact we got them moving and fighting and all that stuff, we were very lucky.
Yeah, they put on a bit of show for us that day, didn't they?
Yeah, they knew the camera was there rolling, so they were like, But yeah, that was the end of the trip. We got back to the hostel, had a nice night there, and then we had to fly off. But like, as I said at the end of the video, we squeezed a lot into these 2 weeks, and a lot had to go right in terms of the transport and transfers and weather, and it all just fell into place. So Indonesia is very, very easy to travel around. Like, there's always ways you can book transfers and transport and things like that. Like, I mean, most of Southeast Asia is like that. It's like whatever activity you want to do, you can book super easy. Whatever transport you need, you can find something. People were ridiculously friendly there, like so nice, like, and weren't too pushy. It wasn't people like trying to sell you stuff and being annoying. It's just everyone was just super friendly. So
it's a really good sort of place for your first backpacking trip as well.
Yeah,
not necessarily East Java, but Indonesia as a whole.
Yeah, you know, part of the reason lots of people do Southeast Asia when they're young is because it's so cheap, but also there's just such a big scene there, and it is very easy to travel, and like the sort of backpacking scene varies in volume in different parts of Indonesia, but it's still very easy to get around, and you're going to see just so many amazing things. Like I said at the end of the video, I was like, oh god, if I'd known it would be this good, I would have come back way sooner, because it's just each day we were seeing something mind-blowing, you know.
Yeah. Every single day something very unexpected pops up. Even the festival thing at the
festival.
I feel like I've been tripping balls for the last.
Yeah. So I think that about wraps us up for our tips and advice for our trip in Indonesia. If you've got any more questions, just leave it in the comments, and then and next week on the channel I'm gonna have a little video about what cameras I use on the trip, and give you, if you want to film your trips, what cameras you should use and stuff like that, and give you some tips and advice. So that'll be out next week, and then mid-September will be my road trip from London to Lake Como in my buddy Adam's Aston Martin, and I'm just starting to edit that now, and the car looks so good. So it's that trip, like I said, that trip's a very different budget to Indonesia, which is why it's a lot shorter trip.
He couldn't have done this trip with me. Not a chance.
No. Yeah, just like imagine that car you had in New Zealand driving with that.
And I would have been sleeping in the back of that as well.
Yeah.
Nose rounds.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you soon.